Thank you. Thank you. When I was first diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, I thought, stage 3? Well, that's not so bad. 3 out of 10. I mean, my God, I'm still in the early stages, right? Well, I soon learned, of course, that it meant 3 out of 4. So I knew that was serious. And I asked my doctor, what are my chances of surviving this disease? And I was told that the 5-year survival rate for my type of cancer is just over 50%, meaning that only about half of the people who get my diagnosis are still alive after 5 years. Can you just imagine my terror? The next 6 months were a complete emotional roller coaster for me. I just could not believe this was happening to me. I mean, I was 44 years old. I had 3 kids to raise and a job to do. I didn't have time for cancer. Sometimes it made me so angry. But then, one day, out of the blue, I had this complete shift in my way of thinking. It was a beautiful day in October, and I was lying in bed after a very difficult round of chemotherapy, feeling really sick and very, very sorry for myself, when a thought occurred to me. And I thought, you know what, Flo? You're really not helping yourself to get well by wallowing in self-pity. Because as a psychologist, I'm very much aware of the mind-body connection. And I know how negative emotions like fear and anger can actually suppress your immune system. But positive emotions like love and joy can boost the immune system. And I figured, since I need a healthy immune system to fight cancer, well, a positive attitude is vital to my recovery. So as I lay there, bald and sick, I gave myself this little pep talk. I said, come on now, Flo, it's not that bad, It could be worse. Not everything about having cancer is horrible. Come on now, it does have its perks. So I thought about it for a while, and I said, yeah, you know what? Since I got cancer 6 months ago, not once, not even one time, did I have to wash the dishes. Well, I hate washing dishes. I don't know about you guys. But thinking about that made me smile. And I thought, if finding one perk of having cancer can bring a smile to my face, then I challenged myself to find 100 perks of having cancer. And to honor my commitment, I decided that I would blog those perks. So over the next year, as I was going through treatments for cancer, including a mastectomy, chemotherapy, and radiation treatments, I found and blogged 100 perks of having cancer. Now, some of my perks are kind of funny, I guess, and lighthearted. For example, I didn't have to worry about finding a Halloween costume that year. Because let's face it, guys, what could be scarier than a bald, middle-aged woman with one boob? And, when all my hair fell out, I saved hundreds of dollars in hair care. And after the eyebrows went, I got to try out some pretty interesting eyebrow shapes with my eyebrow pencil. But most of my perks actually are very meaningful, and they're a lot deeper. When I was first diagnosed, my immediate thoughts as a single mom were for my 3 children. Caitlin, who was then 16, Donovan, who was 14, and my youngest, Ben, who was just 6. And I'll be honest with you, I was most concerned about my teenagers. I worried about how they would take the news. How would they cope with having a sick mom around the house? How would they cope with having a bald mom around the house? You know what teenagers can be like. And what if I didn't make it? What then? Believe it or not, I wasn't so concerned about Ben because, well, Ben has pretty severe autism. And at 6 years old, he was almost completely nonverbal. So I figured there's just no way I can get this kid to understand how sick I am. And even if he does understand it, being in a world of his own, that's what we say, right, about people with autism. Being in a world of his own, I just figure, well, he's not going to be that concerned about my problems. But I could not have been more wrong about that kid. Even though Ben's verbal skills are still severely limited, he is a very bright little boy. Ben actually taught himself how to read at 3 years old before he could talk, and he learned how to use the computer to express himself in writing. While I was going through treatments for cancer, Ben would often come to me with these little notes that he had written up on the computer and printed off, and they had messages like, "Mom is sick," or "Mom is hurt." I thought, wow, like this kid really gets it. He understands that I'm sick. And sometimes he would really surprise me because he'd bring me these notes with messages like, "Dear Mom, you are nice," or "Dear Mom, I love you." And I thought, not only does he understand, but he cares. And he cares enough to try to cheer me up in his own little way. You know, the funny thing is, Ben did not bring me notes like that before I got cancer, and I've not gotten one single love letter from him since I've recovered. It was only when I had cancer. And so seeing that side of my little boy, a side that I did not know existed, was for me one of the perks of having cancer. You know, after being divorced for 10 years, I had pretty much given up hope of ever finding the man of my dreams. But as fate would have it, would you believe, exactly 5 days before I got diagnosed, I met this guy. Just my luck, right? Yeah. So we hadn't actually met in person, though, but we were talking on the phone, and we were getting to know one another, and we were definitely planning to meet. But as soon as I got the news, I called him up right away. I said, you know, there's no point in us meeting. I just found out I have cancer. I'm about to lose my breast. I'm going to lose my hair. I'll probably go into early menopause from all the chemo drugs. And I don't even know if I'll be around this time next year. And I'll never forget the words that Sean Williams spoke to me on that day. He said, "Hey, if you're trying to ditch me, it's not going to work, because I'm going to take you out to dinner this weekend." Well, Sean has been by my side ever since, and I have to say that having this man with me through that whole ordeal was, for me, another one of the perks of having cancer. I think, though, the ultimate perk for me has come from empowering other cancer survivors to take control of their health. Did you know that the people who are most at risk of getting cancer are cancer survivors themselves? Cancer cells, you see, are sneaky little buggers, and they can lie dormant in your body for years, even decades. And long after you beat cancer, that very same cancer that you beat can come back to get you. It's called a recurrence. And for the rest of my life, even long after that magical 5-year mark has passed, I have about a 30% chance of having a cancer recurrence, statistically speaking. And that is the fear that every cancer survivor lives with. And there are more of us, more cancer survivors in the world now than ever before in history, which of course just goes to show what a fabulous job that modern medicine is doing at helping us survive. But there exists a gap. Every major medical institution in the world, including the Institute of Medicine, has recognized the need for cancer survivorship programs to help survivors like me stay healthy and to reduce that risk of a recurrence. But unfortunately, the logistics of bringing together all the experts and the resources to actually implement these programs has made it nearly impossible to do so. My co-author and fellow breast cancer survivor, Susan Gonzalez, worked for many years as a cardiac rehab nurse. And her job was to help people who had had heart attacks to get healthy so they wouldn't have another one. And I said to her one day, "You know, Susan, it's too bad that something like that doesn't exist for people who are recovering from cancer." And Susan says, "Well, let's do it." And so we did it. We got together, and we have created the first ever of its kind in the world online cancer survivorship program. We call it Cancer Plan for Life. And we've brought together the experts from the fields of medicine, psychology, nutrition, exercise, and meditation. And in 4 weeks, we teach our members how to adopt these lifestyle practices that will help them reach their optimal level of health and significantly reduce their risk of a recurrence. And the beauty of our program, of course, is that logistics is not a concern. Because it's online, our members can take part in this program at their own pace and from the comforts of their own home. You know, for too many years, cancer patients have felt like helpless victims of their disease. Like there was nothing that they personally could do beyond conventional treatments to help improve their own odds of surviving. But let's change that. Let's change the face of cancer survivorship by empowering survivors to take control of their health. Thank you.